this point, the party in Turkey is the wildest defense party of all time. The party favors, instead of delicious cocktails and finger foods, is the S-400 and the F-35. This is actually my kind of party. But now let's build out the full picture, and I'll fill in the gaps of everything you need to know. Rewind 7 years, because the sequencing here really tells the full story. In 2019, Turkey purchased Russia's S-400 Triumph air defense system. That was a direct violation of NATO's interoperability standards, and a move the US explicitly warned would result in consequences. And then President Trump reluctantly expelled Turkey from the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter program and imposed CAATSA sanctions. Wow, that's a acronym that I need to look up myself. This is the first time there's been an acronym that I don't know what it means. CATSA. Yeah, maybe just cats out of the bag, is what they should call that. Congress then codified the ban into law in 2020, stating plainly that Turkey cannot receive F-35s while it possesses the S-400. That law is still on the books today. Turkey still has the S-400, and this morning, per 2 U.S. officials, they confirmed this to CNN and Reuters. Trump is expected to signal at the NATO summit in Ankara that he is prepared to restore Turkey's access to the F-35 program. Not official yet, but it's his own ban that could be reversed on a handshake with a man that President Trump is calling a close friend. How exactly Trump plans to navigate a congressionally mandated prohibition remains to be seen, but in the words of one official, it's unclear. What is clear is that Trump told reporters he's bringing Erdogan something that would make him very happy. And Turkey has been lobbying for the F-35 access with increasing urgency, as its homegrown TFX Con fighter program needs Western engines to actually fly at combat capability. I mean, the jet looks cool, the Con looks cool, but it needs a lot of Western technology to actually be something that could fly in combat and create real deterrence. So will they be borrowing some engine specs from the F-35, or will they just completely scrap that Con program if they do get the F-35? I would bet on the latter. I'll tell you what's actually inside that jet and why handing it to a country with a Russian radar system is the most technically consequential defense decision of this decade. So here's the tactical problem that makes this story different from any other arms sale in recent memory. And I need you to understand the F-35 the way that fighter pilots understand it, not the way the press releases describe it, okay? The F-35 Lightning II, to me, it's not really a fighter jet. It's a flying intelligence fusion node that also happens to carry weapons and look really cool on camera. This thing should definitely be in Top Gun 3. Top Gun 3, Jerry Bruckheimer, if you're watching, please put it in Top Gun 3, okay? And if you need a cameo, just let me know. I'd be happy to. Its radar cross-section is approximately 0.0001 square meters, roughly the size of a metal marble on an enemy radar scope. That's just wild to think about. But the stealth is almost the least important part. I mean, it's awesome, but it gets way better. The AN/APG-81 ASA radar can simultaneously track dozens of aerial targets, map ground terrain at high resolution, and conduct electronic attack. Jamming, spoofing, adversary systems have no hope, all at the same time. AN/ASQ-239 Barracuda, they named it something epic, which is great. I love it when these defense systems get epic names. That should be a requirement to actually get a contract. Raptor, Barracuda, T-Rex, let's go. That's an electronic warfare suite that gives the aircraft 360-degree threat awareness and the ability to detect, categorize, and counter adversary systems, adversary radars, electro-optical targeting, infrared cameras around the entire aircraft so the pilot can see through the jet's own skin in any direction. And the sensor fusion architecture takes all of that data. Radar, EW, which is electronic warfare, got that acronym, figured that one out. The easiest acronym of all time. Everyone's like, hey, good job, Max. Wow, we're really proud of you. Hey, any acronym is a good acronym. Any day where you read an acronym about fighter jets is a good day. Infrared, data link, it synthesizes all of that into one coherent operational picture shared across every networked platform in the battle space simultaneously, not to mention piped directly into the F-35 pilot's helmet. Every F-35 sortie is building a classified library. Every time it flies through a contested environment, it catalogs adversary radar frequencies, detection envelopes, and the exact geometric seams in enemy air defense networks or enemy jets. The data flows back through the Autonomous Logistics Information System, the ALIS, nailed that one, now transitioning to ODIN, into Lockheed Martin's infrastructure and U.S. government oversight architecture. That's the theory that Washington can monitor every maintenance action, every flight hour, every software state on every F-35 operating by any nation on Earth, hopefully. In theory, there is even a remote access architecture, a supply chain embedded oversight capability that could theoretically limit what a rogue operator could do with the jet, and that's just smart. Any export jets need safeguards. They need guardrails. Not that the U.S. would go to war with Turkey. Obviously, going to war with Turkey is way off the board, way in left field. But you got to be prepared. You got to be prepared for anything. This is the case for selling it to Turkey. If those safeguards exist and they're real, then you do have the ability, if things go completely off the tracks, to have a safeguard. But safeguards are good as long as the political will is there to enforce them, and political will could have an expiration date. Maybe someone loses track. Maybe the Trump administration is very dialed in and making sure that they're not sharing information with Russia, or they have ways of knowing if they are. They have ways of knowing if those S-400 operators from Russia are collecting information, getting a little bit too friendly with the F-35 maintenance crews. It's like the S-400s is like giving out free food every night. They're like, hey, we've got free Chipotle every night in our hangar, but we're only offering it to F-35 maintainers. It's just a coincidence. We just think you guys are really cool. But now let's talk about the system that Turkey has sitting in its backyard, that Russian S-400, kind of what I'd like to call the spy in the room at this point. Russia's S-400 Triumph is marketed as a stealth killer already, but the reality is more nuanced than just that. And the nuance is exactly where the threat loves to live, where spycraft loves to live, in the gray area, in the nuance, as we know. The S-400 operates with 3 distinct radar arrays across multiple frequency bands. Its high-frequency X-band radars are the engagement-grade systems that can theoretically guide a missile to a target with precision and without having anything to back it up. It's got low frequency L-band and VHF arrays. A lot of technical talk here, but specifically the NEBO-M. These are detection grade systems capable of painting a return on stealth aircraft at ranges, so they claim, potentially exceeding 150 miles. Detection is not the same as a weapons lock, so a lock by an S-400 to get a weapons grade lock on an F-22 or F-35, those jets have probably already fired standoff weapons to take out the radar itself. So the radar itself is probably going to go bye-bye by the time it can actually get a weapons-grade lock on to shoot down a 5th generation fighter. But you still don't want these radars being able to see it, because if the IADS, the integrated air defense systems of these nations, grows and gets better, or somehow this technology gets to Iran, North Korea, some people that just aren't really invited to the party, then what could happen is those radars could actually talk to different nodes in a non-geolocated area that could then target these 5th generation jets from other directions, not from the actual radar itself, but that radar itself would be pumping information to the different sites that could fire upon it. So as you can see, there's good reason for folks at the Pentagon to be losing a little bit of sleep right now. And a defense analyst, Patricia Marins, told the Eurasian Times, according to Turkish reports, the S-400 was able to detect the F-16, F-35, and even the F-22. So we're not sure how they got the F-35 and F-22, but no one except the Turks can really confirm this. Turkey is said to now hold classified radar return data on American 5th generation aircraft across multiple flight profiles. The S-400's digital network architecture nodes transmitting threats across that web that we talked about earlier. Building track libraries over time would be their goal. That means the data is not static, and every F-35 training sortie that flies within range of an operational S-400 incrementally could improve Russia's picture of what stealth looks like on their scope. Russia designed that system, Russia maintains, and they have a maintenance contract on it, and there's no technical architecture in existence that guarantees classified radar signature data stays inside Ankara's borders when the system that's collecting it was built in Moscow. Moscow might slip in just a little chip. They're like, yeah, don't worry about that chip. It's just an electro-optical upgrade. It's just going to make all you guys get a tan while you're operating this. Meanwhile, it's like piping information directly to Putin's office. Putin's like, oh, wow, that F-35 pilot didn't even shave this morning. Oh, wow, he definitely looks like Rooster from Top Gun, though. Sweet. But why would it be a good thing for Turkey to get the F-35? So now let's do an honest case for the deal, because there is one, and it exists out there, so we got to talk about it. So Turkey is a massive military inside of NATO. It sits at the crossroads of the Black Sea, the Aegean, the Middle East, and the Caucasus. After the Iran War, Erdogan was the key mediator between the alliance and the Hormuz negotiations in some part, even though Iran launched ballistic missiles at Turkey as well, but they were launching at everyone. They were like that 8-headed monster that was like, we're just going to launch at everyone and see what happens. But that locks Turkey more deeply into an American defense industrial ecosystem, making Ankara dependent on U.S. supply chains, U.S. software updates, U.S. maintenance contracts, arguably creates more leverage over Turkey's behavior than exclusion does. So if Turkey goes to China for engines, options for its TFX Con Fighter program, the United States loses that leverage entirely, even though I would prefer 4th generation F-15EXs, F-16s, Block 72 F-16s, but obviously Turkey is going to want the latest and greatest, the most Gucci platform out there. This might be, though, part of the Trump administration's argument, not irrational in my opinion. Bring Turkey close so that they don't get closer to China. So right now Turkey's sitting on a Russian radar, they're shopping for American jets. At this point he's doing some wild speed dating. He sits down with Putin, Putin's like, yeah, we got some massive S-400s, and Erdogan's like, yeah, I like that. And then Trump sits down and Trump's like, yeah, we have the most advanced jet ever built in the entire world. And Erdogan's like, yeah, Putin, you're cool and all. Let's keep hanging out. Like, I'd love to keep you as a side piece, but I'm going to hang out with the U.S. on this one. Erdogan, it's time you settled down. We've all dated someone like you, and it's just inexcusable. You made it to the Global Roundup section, my friend. So this morning in Damascus, while French President Emmanuel Macron was sitting across from Syria's new president, Ahmed al-Shara, at the presidential palace, 2 improvised explosive devices detonated outside the Four Seasons Hotel where Macron had spent the night. One bomb buried inside a parked vehicle on the roadside, the second concealed in a garbage container, both going off simultaneously in the heart of the Syrian capital and sending a column of black smoke rising over central Damascus that was visible for miles, wounded 18 people, including 4 police officers. Macron, luckily, though, was already en route to the palace when the device went off. A margin of minutes separating the first Western head of state to visit post-Assad Syria from what analysts are already calling a near-miss assassination attempt in a city that just Thursday saw a cafe bomb claim 10 lives near the Palace of Justice. So obviously, there's remnants of ISIS still left in Syria that need to be rooted out. The U.S. has struck top ISIS leaders there, and I would say that the strikes on ISIS are going to increase, not decrease, after strikes like this trying to target Western leaders. And that brings us to the 40 Chess strategic analysis section, my friends. So here's a strategic insight that nobody in the legacy media is framing correctly right now, and it requires understanding what Turkey actually is inside the NATO architecture, what that means for Turkey to get the F-35. Turkey isn't a rogue state. Turkey is not an adversary. Turkey is a fully capable NATO ally with the alliance's second largest standing military, deep water navy, indigenous drone program that has changed battlefield doctrine in 3 separate conflicts. They've been helping with a lot of the different conflicts, with Ukraine actually providing drones, and a geopolitical position that sits astride every critical corridor between Europe, Russia, Middle East, Central Asia, and then the Bosphorus Strait, which Turkey controls, is the only maritime choke point that could physically bottle up Russia's Black Sea fleet. That leverage is not theoretical. It's the reason Erdogan has been able to play Russia, NATO, and the United States against each other for a decade without necessarily picking a permanent side. The S-400 purchase in 2019 was not a mistake, it was a calculated message. Turkey will not be taken for granted. And then the F-35 exclusion that followed was the response. Actions have consequences. What is happening in Ankara today is the resolution of that standoff, hopefully, and the terms matter enormously here. If Trump signals that F-35 access will happen without requiring verified S-400 disposal as a precondition, I think that could be a mistake. Will the U.S. protect its advanced technology at all costs? Keep that 5th generation as secretive as possible? At this point, it remains to be seen. What do you think? Do you think we actually see the F-35 arrive in Turkey, or will it just be some ability to update Turkey's indigenous 5th generation fighter with U.S. technology?